Hello. This is a UV mapping tutorial. There are a lot of UV mapping tutorials out there. This one is aimed at showing some shortcuts to working a bit faster with UV mapping of a hard surface model, where you cannot just sort of UV map it in one click. The aim of UV mapping is to make sure that you sample a set of polygons that are all facing more or less the same way, that are sort of logically grouped, and try to maximize the surface area that these polygons have as if they were flattened out into a Photoshop document for painting. Okay, so to select, you just control click your way around. You can use grow and you can use shrink, although let's just undo to where we were. Okay, and let's see. The UV Unwrap Modify in 3D Max is found in the Modify list under the Modifiers tab next to Create, and you just type in U and it will jump you down there. Apply it and it will show up like so. It's got 3 selection modes, and it's also got a element mode which will let you select everything in one if the model's made of separate pieces, like imagine a bicycle or something with wheel, handlebars, etc. To map out a face selection, you can press the reset peel button. What that will do is flatten out all the pieces, and you can then drag them around. I like to use the freeform tool, but you've got move, rotate, and scale, which is WER, and then you've got the freeform tool here. Where the point of the freeform tool is it combines these together, and you can drag in the middle of that tool to make you move around. You can rotate using the middle part, and you can scale using the corners. Most UV mapping tools have something like this, and our goal really is to spread this clutter out into nice distributed surfaces that match the proportions of the polygons. And you can see if we move all this out the way, we have a mapping square. Right? You can, in let's say Mudbox for example, you can have multiple mapping tiles. We're just going to use one. Let's turn off the grid. Alright, I find it particularly useful, and then later we'll be packing all these items back down into here proportionately. But we have a long way to go before we get there. There are some automatic UV mapping tools out there, UV Router for example, which will do a job pretty quickly, but they'll never like fill a hole like this, for example. And they don't optimize the space perfectly, although they do a great job if all you want is like a 2-second unwrap, and you're not too worried about really optimizing the space. But in this example we are. A quick way to get started would be to grab all this clutter and go, maybe do this after mapping out some of the more obvious spots on the model, but and just go to box mapping. So in the original 3D maps you just had planar mapping, cylindrical mapping, spherical, and box. So what box mapping does is works out everything facing in the top direction, everything facing in the bottom direction, and obviously the sides and the back and the front, and it sort of maps out groups. Because a lot of this is boxy, we can use this to just quickly get a few shapes pre-mapped, so to speak. So we'll just jump in there, and you can see it squares it up into there, but it's all like, all the content is overlapping. Now here's a good point. When you use the box map tool, for some strange reason 3D Max keeps the box map tool open. I suppose it's so you can adjust the location of the box and all that kind of thing. You see how it sort of updates in there. But again, you know, this is not really necessary for us to do right now. So once you've mapped it, you need to turn it off before you can then move stuff around. Otherwise it sort of locks the view. So we'll just move that out of the way. So basically we still have clutter, right? All the pieces are overlapping. But now what we can start to do is to select out logical groups, like this floor in the side of the vessel. This is some sort of a prototype model for a spaceship game, and we're just finding that piece. Right? We could go select by element now using the select element tool here rather than this one. This will select all the elements of the model. This will select polygon groups by the UV mapping. Right? So just for example, if we grab that piece, you see it's a piece by itself, and there's another one, and there's another one, and so on. Right? But it's really difficult to tell what part these relate to unless you're checking in the screen space. So just undo a few times. Back to here. I usually prefer to just select out pieces by hand if they're really large and easy to grab. And one thing you can now do is go grow. Now this grow here is going to grow all over the model. And we'll just undo back to where we were. I went a bit far. Oh, there we go. So, or we can use this grow here, which would just grow the UV selection, so it won't affect polygons from adjacent UV spaces, or islands. Right, so you can see it's grabbed out just that part. Now it won't grow it anymore. So that's kind of nice. We can pull that piece off. Now, whether or not this piece is like good to have all in one single shot, it's another matter. But you can see, we kind of got the UV mapped out. Okay. I would imagine that stuff like this. Okay, here's another feature of the selection, is that once you select a square and then another square, you can grab another one, but then it's actually covering in border here, so it doesn't like you to grab that. So what you have to kind of do is trick it and use Alt to select or deselect the ones you don't want. So this piece here is attached, and in fact the polygons around it are attached too. We could probably break this off. So to right click and go break, and then pull it off. Just sort of shove it nearby. And we could just go reset peel on it, or we could just relax it a bit, or something like that. It has corners that are sharp, so we could grab those edges. Actually, I'm not sure I'm grabbing everything I need here. This is just for example's sake, really. Could grab those edges, and there's one down there too. Points mode. Move that across there. So looks like we're missing one of those guys. Let's go grab that first. We sort of need to zoom down and find out what we're dealing with. It's this polygon here, I guess. Or possibly there is actually a missing polygon. So we'll just go reset peel and see what that gives us. Still missing stuff. There's the other side. It seems to have gotten rid of that bit before. Possibly the model here is a little crunchy. It might need to be tidied up. In fact, it does look a little weird. So let's try that again. That looks better. But you can see that for the spread, there's overlap here. So we need to do a little bit of pulling out. So how do you tell which ones to pull around? Well, green edges are the border of that UV island. So if that's our UV island, the green edges represent the outline. Okay, it's better to drag the outline edges than, say, for example, this one here, because we know that's a square in the polygons. And these little strips, they're not going to matter too much if they're a little off, although it is not good to have them off. I suppose you could do something like this. Grab those outside edges and go break, and that will pretty much split them into two, and then you can sort of move them off to form more proportionate distribution of those polygons. it's kind of useful to note that if we grab this whole piece and re-UV-map it, you'll notice that it keeps the broken edges that we made. Mostly, they are broken, but it sort of tries to redo the surface to match the actual polygon distribution or proportions or whatever. I'm going to go with something like this anyway. I'm just going to sort of force it to be like so. For now, that'll do. Right. Now this is just a little piece of a huge, large structure, and you can kind of see the space that it fits into is more rectangular than this. So you can take a few liberties with proportions. What I like to do is just to use the space that's there to work out how it needs to be about that size and about that shape. Let's stop the first video here. We'll start in the next video with cleaning up the model around that area. We'll get onto more general mapping procedures.